Yo, what up? Welcome to Free Refills Podcast, where we come together as youth leaders to discuss the realities of leading in youth ministry. Our hope is that you leave refilled, refueled, and re-energized to carry on in ministry. I'm your host, Boss, coming to you from Indianapolis, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dusty.
What up?
Coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I'm also joined by Nick.
How's it going?
Coming in from Sparks, Nevada. How's that, Nick?
You're learning.
Perfect. I've worked on it.
We're getting there.
Got it. Each episode, we have a guest in our conversation. And this episode, we have Reverend Jonathan Queen. Reverend, thank you for being here. Welcome.
Hey, I'm honored to be with y'all. Thank y'all for having me.
Hey, before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you located? Tell us about your family and how long you've been in ministry.
Okay, so I am coming to y'all from the Maryland portion of the DMV. That's the abbreviation for the DC, Maryland, Virginia metropolitan area, I guess. I live in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, and I serve at the First Baptist Church of Glenarden, where I'm the youth pastor and associate pastor there. I am the husband of one wife, the father of 6 adult children, and also 6 grandchildren. So
wow.
I am the OG of youth ministry.
Yes.
Although I've only been in ministry for about 11 years now. So I'll expand a little bit on that a little bit as we talk. But, as I said, husband, father, man of God, servant who leads, leader who serves, mentor. I'm just a humble vehicle, pot of clay, broken vessel, and
That's
grateful that God continues to use me.
Oh man, we're grateful that we are honored to have the OG sitting with us. So this is great, and that is a lot of why we ask you to come sit with us and share your wisdom, your knowledge, your life experience, and your perspective. So we're grateful. Dusty and Nick are gonna jump in with a couple questions to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, before I get to that, I'll just say if you're listening, all of our answers need to be the back end of his answer. If we could just if that's my next tattoo or something, I don't know. But it's like all of us need to have that like imprinted on our minds and be able to respond the same way and live that out. So I appreciate that, man. Also, you said grandchildren. I'm looking at you right now and I'm thinking you're not somebody I want to square up with on the football field right now. So it's I'm like, see, you said grandchildren. I was like,
yeah.
So,
yeah.
Wow.
Man. So, all right. We ask as free refills, we ask the same kind of question, what's your favorite drink choice? Maybe you have you gotta have it, it's just good day, bad day. What's your go-to drink?
Wow. Drink choice. I'm a coffee guy, but I also dabble a little bit in the Mountain Dew if I need to stay up a little bit while I'm driving. Don't drink soda that much like I used to, but yeah, I'm a coffee and a tea guy. My wife, she specializes. Right now I can go into my kitchen and probably pull out 100 different versions of teas. She just has specialized teas for everything.
Wow.
I drink a lot of tea as well.
Wow. Yeah, I tell people all the time back when I was teaching, if I was having a bad day, everybody knew they could bring me the dark stuff, which meant they could bring me a Dr. Pepper or a Coke. And if I was drinking something that was dark, like one of those, they were they knew it's been a day.
Yeah.
Most of the time it was just water. So I'll let Nick take the next one.
Yeah, so I'm going to switch it up a little bit from just what are you reading, which we normally ask, but I'm going to go a little more specific. What is a non-theological book you're reading or a non-fiction book that you're reading, if you are?
Theological non-fiction. Okay. So one, I am an author as well. I didn't include that in my introduction. I've written 6 books, but I'm currently working on my dissertation for my Doctor of Ministry, which doesn't allow me a lot of time to read anything outside of what I'm supposed to be reading in regards to my research. Yeah. So I've been reading a lot of Michelle Alexander's The New Jim Crow, but from a nonfiction, I'm gonna be honest with you. When I need to unwind, I'm on Netflix. I'm watching, some shows on there. you know, so I can't really say I've been reading anything from a nonfiction, you know, creative type. I'm about to do a series on OnlyFans. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that trend that's out. So when we start our September series next week, I'm doing a series called OnlyFans, but the fans is crossed out and it says followers after that. So I've been reading Kyle's Not a Fan book just to kind of refresh on some of the things I want to include into the series. But yeah.
That's good. I might ask you for the notes and steal that one. All right. So you kind of talked about, this is our last question, kind of talked about like when you just need to kind of like chill. What would you say other than Netflix maybe recharges your batteries?
Oh, that's easy. I mean, for me, it's working out, walking. I'm blessed to have a park that's very close to my house, and depending on what time of the day, I could have the whole park to myself. I run the track, I do my dips and push-ups and pull-ups on the different equipment there. So for me, anytime that I can work out, have a little bit of a gym in the basement where I can recharge. But that's my go-to. If I'm going through it, I'll put some music on, put my earpods in, and just work out, and that keeps me good.
There you go.
That's why you don't want to try me on the football field too.
100%.
I'm still good. Don't let the.
I just got done with CrossFit, and I was telling them like trying to pick up my arms right now, like just to do anything is not easy.
Yeah, it's rough. That soreness is a good thing, though. I love it.
Amen.
That's perfect. Well, we could kick it and we could do this and talk about life and stuff like that for a while, which is what we love. But we also want to take a deep dive into our conversation today, which is not necessarily, I mean, none of what we talk about is really lighthearted. It's all deep. It's all, it's thick stuff. And what we're talking about this month is secondary discipleship. What we mean by that is equipping students so that they're equipping students, so that they're impacting their community, so that we, the youth leaders, aren't the ones doing it anymore. That is something I think all of us, we have church mission statements that way. We have youth group mission statements that way. We aim for that. But I think a lot of times we miss it. And maybe even some of the stuff that's happening today all across the world is because we've missed it. And so we wanted to talk with you about this, Jonathan, because last month we talked about reimagining momentum. And now with COVID, that has really exposed a lot of things, a lot of holes for us in the church, for the way we do ministry, the way we do youth ministry. And this seemed like this fit right into the next topic that could build on. So your name had been mentioned and we were like, man, he's been doing it. We wanted to talk to you about what that meant. So when you hear secondary discipleship, what does that look like? What do you think of when you hear that? Maybe that'll kick us off, and then we've got some other questions to get us rolling, but take it from there.
Well, yeah, so for me, I mean, I would probably say it, and I'll say it as humble as I can. That's pretty much my signature. When people think about my contributions to youth ministry and pretty much what I represent, it has probably been the empowerment of youth to become leaders right away. Like anytime I'm doing a training, I get to do trainings for youth leaders across the country and even in other countries. I always put that as foundation. Like that's step number 0. It's right after you pray and ask God to guide you. But if you're working in youth ministry, the very next step is finding young people that you can empower to lead alongside of you. So even though, and I love what y'all are doing and how y'all saying it, but I would take issue even with the name of secondary discipleship. Like I wouldn't even give it that type of title, because then it almost instills that it's not foundational discipleship. So for me, when I tell young people, I give them the the authority right away to recognize that even though you're going to hear people say, oh, you're great, you're the future, I try to instill in them that, no, it's now,
Love it.
Tomorrow's not promised, and you have the ability to lead right now. And I get to serve under one of the greatest pastors ever, who has given me the autonomy, Pastor John K. Jenkins Sr., who is phenomenal in the kingdom, but he has given me an autonomy. And then I also have mentors and guides that have served in youth ministry. And one of them, Reverend William S. Berkeley Jr., taught me from the beginning. He said, youth ministry begins when youth minister to other youth. So that locked in. I was like, okay, so in order for this thing to be right, for it to look right, for it to really please God, then we have to give young people the opportunity to do what it is that we're telling them they can do, and not just wait for it.
I love that. I love that. Earlier in the summer, I sat with some leaders and had heard this and maybe started running with this idea of, we talk about empowering students. Well, what if it was the transfer of power of students to where I'm communicating to you, like, no, you have it. You have it. Like, Jesus did this. He told the disciples, he said, you have it, go for it. You go do it. That it's not my power to give to you, but I just want to tell you about it and empower, but transfer that power to you. So you're not just keep coming back to me, but you're running with it. That's solid. I love that.
Yeah. And I think something you said, like, I wouldn't even give it that title, because the moment we do, once we give it something a title, we can say, well, that doesn't fit us. Right? Like, well, that's not us. Like, and I think that we are very, very that can be a very, very dangerous thing, because it is us. It's all of us. Like, right. This is what we should be doing, is discipleship. We were kind of talking pre-talk about, like, who does discipleship well? Some other different religions, they do it really well. But when you say, you obviously seem pretty passionate about this, so I'm about to ask you this, and I think might set a fuse, and so I let it go if it comes. What's the mindset shift, the paradigm shift that you would say that maybe you've seen, and when you talk to other pastors about your passion for this, right? What's the mindset shift for maybe like just a youth pastor who would stumble across this, that'd be like, hey, you know what? Like, I really want to be better at discipleship, but, like, what's the mindset shift to empower them to do that?
You have to show them. You have to kind of model it for them. I think for young people are automatically inclined to desire community, but they want it on their own terms. And one of the things, and this is where the full circle of ministry life kicks in, because as Boss mentioned earlier, I'm a part of the Youth Ministers Executive Council, and me being able to be a part of that allowed me to be in the room where it happened. That's my Hamilton reference.
There it is.
I'm just saying, I'm die hard, but having to be in the room where it happened, where we were learning about Generation Z. And this whole conference where we got to hear from Jonathan, was it Morrow, the guy who wrote this amazing information on how to recognize what Generation Z brings to the table. And when I started learning, okay, these are our digital natives, these are the ones who, and lo and behold, we hit this COVID-19, and I've been already including what I've learned at that conference with all of my leaders and my young people, which means I have already taken youth and put them in positions where they're a part of every decision-making aspect of our ministries. So naturally, when you have young people in leadership positions and they have to communicate with other young people, then it's automatic that the discipleship piece comes with it, because we're not just getting together to plan out ministry. We're getting together and having fun. We're playing games. We're eating together. We're doing the things that automatically make discipleship authentic and organic. And therefore, when my adult leaders see the young people modeling what it is that we've been calling them to. And then the beautiful part is our church, our mission statement of our church is developing dynamic disciples. So when I say we're going to model exactly what the adult part of our church does. We're just going to do it in youth ministry. And that kind of got me buy-in across the board, because now my adults, here's the thing that happens. Young people will leave the church if they're not included as children. The reason why they become college students and roll out and say, I'm done, is because you never incorporated them in church while they were young. Now, I face the dilemma of giving them this amazing experience as youth where they're in positions of leadership. And then when they get to become young adults, they come to the table like, look, we've been doing this for years. What y'all got for us? What can we do? How can I serve? That's what I teach them to say. Just come to the table and say, how can I serve? And that's where it becomes ideal for people to see, hey, these young people learned something and they're doing something that we can not only celebrate, but also look to as inspiration.
That's good. So this isn't a fast thing. This isn't something like you pick it off the shelf and go like, okay, we can apply this right now and we can see the fruit of it right now. I mean, when you think of this, when you think maybe there's a story that's running in your mind or several where you're going, I'm thinking of this student who is now an adult. Like, can you kind of unpack that a little bit of like time frame stuff? Because I think everybody is wondering, yeah, but how long is that going to take?
So, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you, even though what you said is completely accurate. So I had the opportunity to be a part of what was called the Cadre. And the Cadre was a organization of youth pastors from all over the country that got to do advances with Jeannie Mayo, who is a guru at youth ministry, decades in. And one of the things that she instilled in us was that rules without relationship equal rebellion. So we learned that the first thing we do is create relationship. So even though it doesn't happen overnight, what I can say is that when I first came into First Baptist Church of Glenarden, and not only am I the youth pastor and associate pastor, which means I get to do the funerals and the hospital visits and preside and all of that, but I have 5 amazing ministries that I'm responsible for. And what I did is I created a youth leadership council. And that's basically just a sneaky way of doing discipleship while creating leaders as well.
Sure.
Because I took the top of the food chain of young people. And that doesn't mean they were the smartest or the best grades or the best behaved. I had 2 of them that were on probation. 2 of them I met through counseling them when they were having bad behaviors. But I put them in a position where they were part of a youth leadership council, which means they work directly with me in regards to certain aspects of ministry. So they're the ones who I'm bringing to the table when it's time to plan services. They're the ones who are giving me ideas. They're keeping me up to date with what's going on. What are the topics young people want to talk about? And then what happened is when the church started saying, hey, Reverend Queen has young people that are being trained. Like I was training young people to be altar counselors. That means not only are they doing discipleship, they are evangelizing as well. So you have a young person, 13 years old, that can lead someone to Christ, where you got a whole room full, maybe 1,000 adults who wouldn't know what to do if someone raised their hand and said, I want Jesus. So now I got young people being trained to do that. And then I really hit them and said, hey, my young people can actually preside over service. So if it's Children and Youth Day, instead of just doing prayer and scripture, how about they lead the whole service? And when that happened, and I went in, I had them memorize the script. So now they're doing better than all the ministers. The ministers are looking at me like this, side-eyed, like, bring these kids in here to, outdo us. But what happened is that created a culture. So now, 4 or 5 years in, the other leadership of the church are looking for young people to help participate in what they're doing. So when you talk about a time frame, for some churches, it's going to be different. Depending on the size of your ministry will be different. But we learned in the Cadre that you pick your Paul Reveres. Who are the people that have influence? Get them together in a circle and then tell them you have permission. You have the green light to help bring more people to Christ. And when you get them, we don't just say, hey, get saved and yay, we walk with them, we lead them, we guide them, and that's what happens. So I got a email from one of the deacons at the church sent me an email of his daughter who started out with me when she was 12 years old, who is now at Elon University in North Carolina, leading she's the communications leader for the Black Student Union, and she was leading these great protests of students who were coming together to talk about the racial unrest and the systemic oppression and things like that. So when you have your students who were, you know, I'm thinking this playful, wanted to do all of the parts for the drama, and now she's leading in her college as a sophomore. You know, so that's the type of stuff that makes the biggest difference for me.
So when you have that, how do you celebrate that well? I mean, to me, this kind of hits different. As last night I was on TikTok, and I'm not that guy, and I'm just scrolling through, right? But what I saw on there, you have those videos of people saying like, hey, I've got questions for Christians. If you're a Christian, duet this and answer these questions. And where I got pumped was not once did I see a pastor. Not once did I see somebody older. It was always their peer group. It was their students jumping on saying, hey, this is my opinion on this. And I was so excited to see that, like you said, right? Like they step in, they know they have that authority to speak into that with their life. How do we call that out in students better? And how do we celebrate that without it being, you know, that idea of having the student, they're the upper echelon of students. No, they're just another kid. They're another person. They're another follower of Christ, and they have something to speak on too. How do we celebrate it well?
Wow. So what we do, and again, it's going to be context as well, depending on your context of where you're coming from. But we call it a culture of honor. So what we do is we figure out ways to celebrate almost everything. Like we try to, you know, I teach my young people how to catch each other doing good things. We have certain aspects of when we get together where we not only ask for prayer requests, we do praise reports, but we also say, hey, celebrate somebody you caught shining, doing something great that they wouldn't even recognize. We do that at the end of every service when we were in person. And now even while we're doing these virtual services, and that's been the blessing too. Like any pastor who can't admit that they needed some young people to help them out when they had to transition to this format, I want to meet them, because I give myself a lot of credit for being social media astute and inclined, but I still needed to holler at my young people in regards to, hey, what appeals to y'all? What, you know, like even just learning that I can't preach the same amount of time in person as I would online. Like, you know, the young people had to tell me that. It's like, and they, you know, they call me Rev, and they like, Rev, listen, them 20-minute joints, we can't, it's not gonna work. They're gonna click, they're gonna turn the channel, you know what I mean? So we started figuring out ways to be creative with it. And then the other part is you honor them by allowing them to lead more. So my young people get excited because they're like, okay, if I'm doing great at this, that means I get to step up to this. And it's not just within the youth ministry, it's within the church and their community. So if I'm doing something, if I'm called to do a conference where I'm going to speak to a whole bunch of, I know that, yeah, I'm great, I'm going to do well and all of that, but they want to see the young people I'm talking about. Like even now, if y'all tell me, if we could have, you know, in a perfect world, I'd have 5 young people standing right behind me ready to speak and just give y'all the real from their point of view, because they do it best, they speak it best. So the other part is that young people get excited about Jesus. If they fell in love with Jesus, all you got to do is tell them like, hey, this is what pleases God. This is what the Bible says. I'm grateful to Nick Hall and the Pulse family. They came up with this year of the Bible, this thing for the year of the Bible, and we latched onto that in the beginning of the year, and my young people ran with it, carrying hard copy Bibles, doing the scripture verses in their TikToks and on their social media posts and all of that thing. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question is just be authentic. Young people look at you as an example or an extension of how God feels about them. If they honor you and respect you as a leader, and you're catching them doing something good and you're honoring and celebrating them, they will do more of it because they want more of that celebration.
You kind of just gloss over something that hit me huge in there. And for those that might need to hear this, you mentioned that was the end of every service. And like what you talk about at service conveys your value. And if you can celebrate these kind of things in a service time, that moves this from the concept that we talked about before. It's not secondary discipleship. This is discipleship, and we got to celebrate that. That's huge.
Yeah. Hey, first off, shout out to the cadre. I just went through it this year. So got to sit with Jeannie this year. Awesome. I actually nominated Boss. I think Boss is going to try to go through next year.
I'm going through it.
Let's go. And so, yeah, dude, it's an alumni of its own, man. And so, honored to have that with you as well. Man, I think what's really important when I'm hearing this is like your leaders, right? Like your volunteers, your other people. Like, I think as a youth pastor, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, cool. I hear students, like, I'm not hearing anything about leaders. So like, do you have adult leaders with you, and then like, what's their role? Like, how do you empower them if you have them, or if you don't? I don't know. So I'm asking, like, how do they play into the situation?
So again, I guess, so for us, we take a mission statement. Our mission statement is to see youth become unashamed followers of Jesus Christ and empowered to change the world. That's our vision and mission statement. And then we talk about the fact that we do this as a culture of family with an emphasis on the small group culture. And of course, Dusty, from Cadre, you would know that being a ministry with small groups, being a ministry of small groups is two different things. So we are a ministry of small groups. And basically, I do a service every year in the beginning of our return season, which is usually back to school time. And I literally do a ordination of all of my volunteer leaders. I basically give them the whole spiel of, you are not just help or assistance, you are shepherds in your own right, and that you have the influence and the opportunity to be the answered prayer of a young person coming in this service. So, and then of course, our small groups are designed where we do each grade, each gender separated with 2 to 3 small group leaders, and they have to be trained, they have to buy into the whole vision. And one of the things that I learned is that if you can communicate your heart to them, if everybody catches the vision and feels their part in it, then you will have a ministry that flourishes and falls in love with seeing young people come to Christ. And not only, it's great, we celebrate how many people got saved and how many people came to the altar and who, all of that's great. But when we start looking at how many of our young people are now serving in leadership positions, that's one of the biggest things. So right now, last night I had to do a Zoom call for something that the church is putting together, and they asked me to be a part of the call, but they had already selected 2 of my youth leaders to be on the call as well. And that shows me that even without me saying, hey, y'all need some young people, they've now bought into the fact that, so my adult leaders look at that as something to celebrate as well, because they get to claim we're family. So, we have tribes, and they get competitive, and they'll say, well, that young person's from Fearless Tribe. Well, that person's from, the 412 crew. So, they do that as well. That helps them latch on to the whole mission and vision as well.
So earlier you said the term dynamic disciples. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you unpack that a little bit when you talk about, because I think I've never heard dynamic disciples. I've just heard disciples. Why add dynamic to it?
So the full vision and mission statement of the First Baptist Church of Glenarden is developing dynamic disciples through discipleship, discipline, and duplication. So great pastor ran with them D's. We're going to use all of these D's. The good news is that actual vision and mission statement came out of a youth ministry developing, like competing to say who can come up with the great vision and mission statement years ago, way before I got here. And that became the vision and mission statement. So dynamic disciples, the dynamic part is just, what the word actually means, the descriptive. You're not just going to be a disciple, you're going to be a dynamic disciple. And that is shown by the way that you duplicate and the way that you are disciplined. And everything that we do in our church has discipleship at its core. Mm-hmm. So we have 120 something ministries. We have over, when we were in the building, it was 12,000 people every Sunday,
Mm-hmm. Right.
So even for the young people, when they see that, what I did, we went to South Africa, and I remember being at 3C Church, and you know, amazing pastors, Pastor Burt Pretorius and Shanae Pretorius, and they have amazing youth and young adult ministry. But one of the things they said to me that just kind of pricked my heart, and the pastor said, if your youth ministry is not modeling, duplicating, and echoing what is heard by the senior pastor, then you are in a rebellious state. And he didn't say it just like that, but he basically let me know that, you know, I'm like, hold on, when I'm not actually executing what it is that God has given my senior pastor, I am in violation because it's not my house, you know, and we can argue kingdom semantics and all of that. But the fact of the matter is that I had to reevaluate. So that put me in a perspective where I said, okay, if I'm going to teach my young people to be young dynamic disciples, I have to model what I'm seeing from the pastor. And guess what that did? That helped me reestablish the structure of our youth ministry, because we have a main service on Sundays, we have a Bible study on Tuesdays, and then we have all of these supporting discipleship classes. Queen Esther for women, we have BID, Brothers in Discipleship for men, we have Walking Sisters with Your Journey, we got all of these different ministries, from fitness to finances and all of that. And I'm like, okay, we're going to do the same thing. Friday night is our main service. That's church. People that don't even come to our main church, they come to this youth ministry on Friday nights. Tuesday nights is our Bible study, which supports the Friday night. We keep all of that connected. And then we have our connect groups and the other ministries that I am responsible for: Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Star for Girls, Gideon's Army for Boys. All of them serve as the discipleship. And when I did that, we created a collaboration where all of the ministries were supporting each other and feeding into that whole family dynamic of what it looks like to develop these young people, not just on a Friday night experience, but into a lifestyle of how do I do something every day that contributes to my relationship with God.
That's solid. How has that been, having dynamic disciples and having that mindset and that goal and the vision, played itself out now in COVID, when we've had to stay at home, we've had to lock down, we've had to, you know, completely reimagine things? How have you seen that within your context play itself out, where you're like, they're doing it, it's making it happen? Maybe there's some other things that you can mention, like that, just new stuff that has come about that you're like, this is happening, they're taking off, they're doing it. What are you witnessing with the team, with your students?
So the young people, they kind of they already were prepared for this. This is what they do. They know this online stuff. My goal was simply to get them to start developing or designating more of the time to what they had agreed to and signed up for when they said that they were going to be disciples of Christ, when they decided they were going to be young followers of Jesus and join the church. And that is, we have this motto: win souls, make disciples. That's what we say all the time: win souls, make disciples. So our young people are geared on a mindset of, we got to win souls, make disciples. That's in our chant. That's something that we say in the beginning of services. So what we did is we basically just said, okay, let's start allowing the re-education part, you know, like of being virtual versus being live. Let that happen organically with our young people, so that they can kind of show us what it is that they appreciate more. So for me, seeing my young people, like we have a 15-year-old who pretty much runs our social media, creates the graphics, edits the videos, creates the schedule. We have about maybe 7 to 10 young people who are part of the social media team, and they have assignments of who posts a scripture on Monday, who does workout Wednesdays, who does throwback Thursday. Like, they literally have assignments of when they're expected to do certain things. And then when it comes to, you know, we do some of our services pre-recorded. We'll have, you know, on location sites where it's safe and COVID approved and all of that. But also I got like a little mini studio in my basement where the young people can come get in front of the backdrop and do the hosting, sometimes give the word. Our young people do praise and worship. They do videos in the park. And, you know, I got a young 13-year-old who's playing the guitar and singing from her bedroom, and we record that and they send that in. So The discipleship part comes in after the little, we might have a 45-minute service, and then we go into our breakout rooms in Zoom. And when I tell you that, at first I was like, man, these kids, they be on Zoom all day, YouTube, videos, screen, you know, they're doing this all day. They're not going to want to be on Zoom at 9 o'clock at night. And I was wrong. I was wrong. They are getting on there. And when I do, you know how Zoom allows you to break out into little rooms and stuff, and they get to be in their tribes, and, you know, I get to pop in, and they win points if they're all on camera, and they win points if they're playing great games. And but what has happened, right now we're in our, well, we're just coming out of our break month. August is a break month. We shut down everything during August. It's a church thing. The pastor has designated August as slow down break month. So that's when we're live, the buildings get cleaned, all of the ministries get a break. That's when most people take their vacation, so forth and so on. But even during August, our groups were sticking together, whether it was connecting on GroupMe, having phone calls, FaceTime calls, and still doing discipleship in a major way. And like I said, most of the time it's young people led. I got adult volunteers that serve as chiefs, adult volunteers who kind of guide, but they've been trained and taught that they do what they see me do. Every time they was like, Rev allows these young people to lead in ways that nobody else has seen. And we're going to do the same thing. And that's what blesses my heart, to see that they catch that, because it's the same thing I've learned from my pastor, you know, the way he empowers us to lead and doesn't expect, you know, doesn't have to micromanage us. And the beautiful part is, if you let young people lead in church, they won't leave the church. Oh, I said something there. Y'all got to like put that on the screen or something. When y'all let young people lead in church, they won't leave the church as adults. And that's what happens. Like, they develop this passion, this desire. And, you know, I love it. I love it. We had a group that went down to DC during all of the protests, and they did a march when they had, it was a God Wants Justice march. Shout out to Asia Ali and you know, the people that put that together. But our young people are excited to be a part of something that allows them to use their voice. So yeah, I don't know if that answers.
Yeah, that was great. I think I even the protest, the demonstration that you just talked about, I think I saw video and pictures of it and everything that was happening, and I was like, man, they're doing it. They're doing it. This is awesome. I love it. I love seeing students taking the lead and just knowing that and having the confidence to step into it and go, we're doing this. And then but then knowing that you're right with them, and whether you're physically with them or you're mentally with them, wherever, spiritually with them, and you're going, I'm with you. I got you. Go for it. That is super encouraging, and it's inspiring. It's inspiring to me as where I sit and go, man, see, it can happen. We can do this. Like, we can get them, students can lead, and this thing can play itself out like we have all hoped it would. So that's super cool.
Definitely.
So as I've been listening to this, the thing that's blowing me away every single time you speak about your church and where you're at, you have such a deep culture that seems to be going for a long time. The fact that your vision statement came from the youth ministry, the fact that you've got people inviting students before they invite you into a conversation, like that is unbelievable. And to me, in my context, I mean, that's so exciting. How would you recommend, or what advice would you give to someone who's like, I want that culture built in my church, and how do I step into beginning that process to get to that end goal down the line?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, you know, we have a short time frame, and I would probably kind of need a couple days to give you all of the backstories of how certain things have come to fruition and how certain things have been accomplished. But I think the reality is that we sometimes we get so spiritual that we forget about the Holy Spirit. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, I'm thinking about the fact that we will justify not doing things that the Holy Spirit has really already taken control of and can already lead. So a lot of the stuff that I've seen happening is simply based on me being obedient to the Holy Spirit, trusting God. for anybody who's trying to do this, the first thing you have to do, again, is relationships. One of our mottos is we don't do religion, we do relationships. And we focus on being a culture of relationships. And our church is known for hospitality. Our church is known for humility. You know, my pastor is one of the top pastors in the world, like not just this country. He's big, and you'll see him walking at a conference by himself, you know, sitting in the back seat. You know, he's that guy that really represents. So that is easy to model when you see it. So for people who really want to start changing culture or including some of the stuff that we talk about from a youth perspective, you got to have the relationships that allow you to start bringing these things to the table. I fought for a good couple years to get to the point where our church would allow young people to be on that big platform on a Sunday, for them to be able to lead in that way. I had to fight for them to be able to preach the message on Children and Youth Sunday that happens, you know, once a year. I had to rumble, but here's what I did. I started showing them that it could be done within the realm that I had the authority over. So imagine being able to show videos of your young people already doing the stuff that you're asking them to be allowed to do. That was a big part of it. I was able to get young people to you know, really just step out there and start doing the things that I say, hey, if this goes great, we're going to open the doors for others. So I now have young adults, some who have graduated college, who are now teaching in schools locally, who get to see the fruit of their labor because they went through, you know, a lot of the hard parts to now make it so that a young person gets invited to be a part of a planning or a task force or a committee that's happening for the entire church. So yeah, the relationship piece is big. And also parents, you got to get your parents on board. I have some of the most amazing parents. Like, we did a graduation, and because of the COVID, we literally set up a backdrop in front of my garage and had, you know, stuff. I had a photographer come. I had, you know, people that just give out gifts. And what I heard back from the parents just blew my mind, because they now consider us family. You have helped us raise our child. So this graduation is, you know, you get credit for that as well. And I'm like, listen, we're just secondary role models coming alongside of you as partners, but we're grateful to have the influence that we do have on your child. So when you get the connection with the parents as well, it creates a whole nother world too, because they'll advocate for you. They, you know, a lot of times, let's be honest, youth ministry doesn't get a lot of respect, a lot of love, a lot of resources, because they're not looked at as being a financial contributor to the church. I mean, can I say that? I'm just going to
Come on, preach. Let's go.
So, you know, that's the first budget that's getting cut. That's the first thing. So, but when you have the parents who are the tithers and who are the influencers still say, hey, no, listen, my Fridays, my child was doing bad in school, was wild, and was hanging with the wrong people. And now they're on Zoom talking about Jesus. They're posting scriptures. They're, you know, those things make a big difference in how people will come alongside and support the vision and the mission that you put in place for the culture that you want to see.
Hey, you asked if you could say that. Every single youth pastor that just listened to this and is going, oh, yes, amen. They're like, they probably just stood up if they could. They probably if they're listening to this in the car, they probably had to like swerve a little bit. Like they definitely stand with you for that, for sure. I'll say this. I got to actually tune into your Instagram live that you did for your graduation. And that was the coolest thing I have ever seen. Man, I told all our youth pastors down here, I was like, man, this dude out here did a graduation. And I mean, just letting you know, like, I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that. Because it was inspired me, you know. I was like, man, it sparked me. It challenged me. You made me think, like, why couldn't we, you know, why not us, you know, kind of thing. Why are we not doing this? And so I appreciate that. Thank you for the challenging words. I think it's, you know, I hope that when, you know, people, youth pastors like me, even here in the Bible Belt, hear this and go, maybe we got to change some things up. That's why I try to tell all of our youth pastors I sit with, like, just because it's tradition doesn't mean it was right. Like, it's, you know, it's okay to like, you know, shake it up a little bit, you know? And I know that a lot of them, if they said, hey, can we, you know, I've been discipling this kid that's, since he's a freshman, I think he may be ready to like maybe preach or do something on the stage. They'd be like, So I hear you, and I hope that if someone that I know in the Bible Belt's hearing this, or if you're convicted or you're challenged, good, we should be, because that means we're going to be better. We can be better. So thank you so much for your words, man.
Oh man, my pleasure. Listen, y'all helping me too. This is like that spark. You did say you was going to start some. One of the things I want to tell, we did a 7 last words, and for those who aren't familiar with that, like every year, as we get closer to celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, they do a 7 last words service where 7 people will preach what is called the 7 last sayings of Jesus. And we did that. I usually do it every year with a bunch of youth pastors, and shout out to the Youth Pastors Network in the DMV. They welcome me. I'm from Pennsylvania originally. Thomas Brackeen, Reverend Akil, Reverend Russ, LeVar Jones, these guys welcomed me in. And even though I wasn't from here, made me a part of the family right away. We would do a 7 last words as youth pastors, and every once in a while we would bring our young people to be a part of it. But I did a 7 last words where I let 7 of my youth do all of the preaching. And then I sent the video to my pastor. And he sent me back the words, and this is where it really counts, is because he sent back a message that talked about how proud he was and how awesome it was and how great they did. And I was able to share that with the young people who were, who participated, as well as the adults who helped them and everybody who was in the service. This was a regular Friday service. We might have had, a few viewers live on Instagram, whatever. But for the pastor of the church to say, hey, I watched it, I enjoyed it, that goes a long way, because then when I'm advocating, hey, I got a young person that wants to bring the message on this day, and, that it now makes sense. Because a lot of times our senior pastors and older pastors, they're operating out of tradition, as well as, and sorry to say it like this, but out of ignorance of not knowing that it can be done. I remember talking with a prior pastor about something I wanted to do, and they said, well, that sounds like a talent show. How is that going to give glory to Jesus? And I was like, well, these are young people, and they're using their talent in church, and they're using their talents to talk about God. And this will become a memory that they lock onto in regards to something that was a big transition in their life, or a big change in their life. And, eventually they got it. But I remember that fight and that battle, and understanding that it wasn't personal, and it wasn't based on, it just, they didn't know. So sometimes we have to do things that really show them as we try to explain it.
Yeah, that's solid. Jonathan, thank you. Thank you so much for sitting with us. How can people connect with you? Tell us a little bit, maybe a little bit about your books as well, so people can find you and maybe read some of your words.
Oh, wow, that's great. So listen, first, foremost, it was my honor. I'm grateful. Y'all are like, I might start a new gang and y'all can be in it. Like, I'm going to make y'all,
Yes.
we all got to grow beards like Boss. So we got to get our choice up to that status. I have spiritual envy of your beard. I'm just going to say, but no, I'm grateful to be with y'all. So the one part, and I don't want to drag this out, but I just want everybody to understand why, when y'all hear the passion that comes from me when it comes to talking about young people, because I'm not going to be a youth pastor forever. I know the calling that's on my life.
Sure.
But I want y'all to understand that when I was 16 years old, the reason why I don't look like a grandfather is because I had 3 children before I turned 17.
Wow.
I need y'all to understand that. When I was 16 years old, I was a full-fledged gang member, a drug dealer. I was in the streets. I didn't get saved. I didn't know Jesus until I was in my late 20s. And I spent my teenage years in the streets, and then I spent all of my 20s in prison. So when y'all hear me talking about being a mentor and being, all of these things that God, the biggest thing that I would describe for me is I'm a miracle. I'm one of God's miracles. I am somebody who God pulled up and said, I got plans for you, and you keep trying to run from them, but hey, I got you. So I need y'all to understand that if someone would have grabbed a hold of me when I was 14 and already writing and already knowing that God had given me a gift to lead, that I had the ability to talk people and persuade people, if somebody would have said, hey, let me tell you about this Jesus, let me tell you about how you can use these gifts for the kingdom, I know I would have been the president before Barack. I'm gonna say I would have beat Barack to the. I would have been there first. He'd have been my vice president or something. But I'm just saying, there's so many other things that could have happened. So my passion for young people is based on knowing that if they have the right guidance, and even though I empower them, don't misunderstand. That's with the understanding that there's always somebody guiding and mentoring and leading them as they use this new empowerment, this new power that they have. So I just share that with y'all so that y'all understand that, because when I talk about my book, I think I only got 2 of them here. Are You Sane? This is the book that I wrote when I got out of prison. I did 10.5 years. This is changing who you are by changing how you think. This gives some of my biography, but also a lot of self-help motivation in regards to how you can, take what the enemy try to use as evil and let God turn it to good. The same judge who sentenced me actually now recommends my book to different organizations and things like that. So that's a beautiful thing. And then my wife and I recently wrote, you see the shirt, and the book is called One of Them. It's a book of devotions. What we did is, and this is inspired, the first page is dedicated, I told you about the YLC. It's the Youth Leadership Council, past, present, and future. May you continue to embrace the mission to win souls and make disciples, and may you always remain unashamed to be one of them. We were meeting with some young people. We were talking about see you at the pole. I was challenging them to go pray at their school and pray at their jobs. I was talking to some young adults, and they looked at me and said, well, Rev, that sounds all good, but we don't want to be seen as one of them. And I was like, what? What's wrong with one of them? Yeah, we don't want to be like, so I had to really go in regards to understanding their point of view, but then challenging them and encouraging them. And so this book is really just it's a permission slip. It's a motivational flyer. It's like, this is you being able to recognize that when Jesus said, forgive them, you're one of them. When he said that some of them, they became children of God, you're one of them. When one of them turned around and said, thank you to Jesus for healing them, you're one of them. When Jesus came out and saw the multitude and had compassion on them, you're one of them. So every devotion has a scripture verse that has a them in it. And then we have prayer and challenges. My wife and I, this has been a labor of love. It's not just a book. We got 2 songs out for it now. So go to oneofthem.org, oneofthem.org, and you can find everything about us. I appreciate y'all. That's my TPJ infomercial that you allow me to do.
Love it.
And I got it.
And you have a YouVersion devotional as well.
Yes, we got a 5-day devotional plan on the YouVersion Bible app. Look, this stuff kills. I'm telling y'all looking at somebody who grew up in a neighborhood that was destined to see young Black people die before they turned 18. And I have walked in the Holy Land and South America and South Africa, and I even got a Bible app. I got my devotional plan on the YouVersion Bible app. Mama, look, I made it.
You made it.
Yeah, you can find it on the Bible app as well.
Well, we'll link all of that in the description below so that everybody can find it and follow along and purchase the books and everything, because we want people to get connected with you and what you're doing. And the honor has been all of ours. 100%. And so thank you for taking the time and sitting with us and sharing your wisdom and your words and all of the things that you've been just journeying through to help us be better, which in turn helps our communities be better. So thank you.
Hey, thank y'all. Keep doing the great work, man. Free refills on me.
Got
keep it up. Y'all are doing excellent work. Proud of y'all.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yo, that was an incredible conversation. I am overly inspired, if that's even possible, by Reverend Queen. I am blown away to hear about his heart of ministry and his heart to reach students and see them disciple other students and make an impact in their community. He laid it out perfectly for us and corrected us and even said, like, hey, this isn't secondary discipleship. This is discipleship. And that's why we brought him in. That's why we wanted to have a conversation with him, because we felt it, that he was going to set us on a course and he would set some things right and be able to inspire us. And I pray and I hope we all do that he inspired you too. Maybe there's something that you heard along the way that you want to hear more about. make sure to reach out to him. We've dropped all of his contact info and the ways that you can find him in the description below. Also, he mentioned a network in the episode and in the conversation. There are networks in your area, believe it or not, which means they're filled with youth leaders who want to hang out with you and be an inspiration to you, but not only that, but be inspired by you. If that's you and you don't have a network, we'd love to get you connected with it. Go to our website, links below in the description. And as another thing, if maybe you're listening to this right now on one of the podcast platforms, thanks for listening to us. We're on YouTube now. And if you're on YouTube, guess what? We always started as a podcast. So make sure to subscribe to us on whatever channel, whatever medium you're listening to us and partaking in this. We would love to be connected with you. So reach out to us at freerefillspodcast at NNYM.org, whatever. It's in the description below. Check it out there. Hey, as a reminder, as we peace out of here, make sure that you're pouring into yourself, because the more you pour into yourself, the more you're able to pour out to others. Until next time, peace, blessings.